Airports are not what they were 2 years ago. The combination of post-pandemic infrastructure overhauls, new federal mandates, updated TSA protocols, and sweeping international entry requirement changes has created an environment where experienced travelers, people who fly dozens of times a year, are getting stopped, fined, delayed, and in some cases denied boarding because they assumed the rules they knew still apply. They don't. Not entirely. And the changes that matter most are not the ones getting headlines. They're the procedural updates, the threshold adjustments, the technology deployments, and the quiet policy shifts that only become visible when you're standing at a checkpoint realizing something has changed, and you are now on the wrong side of it. Here is what is actually catching travelers off guard at airports in 2026. 8. Real ID is no longer optional. And the grace period is completely gone. For years, the Real ID enforcement deadline was extended, delayed, and pushed back so many times that a significant portion of the American traveling public stopped taking it seriously. That was a reasonable response to a decade of false deadlines. It is now a costly assumption. Full Real ID enforcement for domestic air travel within the United States is in effect. A standard state-issued driver's license that is not Real ID compliant, identifiable by the absence of a star marking in the upper corner, will not get you through a TSA checkpoint for domestic flights. No exceptions, no supervisor override, no grace period language that TSA officers can invoke at their discretion. Your alternatives are a valid US passport, a passport card, a military ID, or a Real ID compliant license. If you arrive at a checkpoint with a non-compliant ID and no alternative, you will not board your flight. The populations being caught most frequently are travelers in states that were slow to implement Real ID infrastructure, older travelers who haven't updated their licenses in several years, and people who obtained new licenses recently but didn't specifically request the Real ID version. Check your license right now before your next trip. The star marking is the only indicator that matters at the checkpoint. 7. TSA Precheck and Global Entry, the enrollment and renewal backlog. TSA Precheck and Global Entry memberships are 5-year programs, and a significant wave of travelers who enrolled during the 2019 to 2021 period are hitting expiration simultaneously in 2024 through 2026. The result is a renewal backlog at enrollment centers that has pushed appointment availability out 8 to 14 weeks in major metropolitan areas. The critical detail most travelers don't know: your pre-check benefits at the checkpoint do not automatically extend while your renewal is pending. The day your membership expires is the day you lose dedicated lane access. Traveling with an expired known traveler number generates a standard screening designation. You are in the MIS, general population line, with your shoes off. Renew at least 6 months before expiration. Online renewal for PreCheck is available without an in-person appointment and typically processes within 3 to 5 weeks. Global Entry renewal requires an in-person appointment interview at an enrollment center, or, in some cases, can be completed at an automated passport control kiosk during an international return. But only if your conditional approval has been granted before you travel. Don't assume it has been. Confirm your status in your TTP account before departure. 6. Carry-on. Liquid rules. The 3-1-1 is being enforced differently now. The 100 milliliter liquid rule has existed since 2006. What has changed is how it's being enforced and the technology being used to identify violations. CT scanner deployment at TSA checkpoints has accelerated significantly through 2025 and into 2026, with the technology now operational at the majority of major U.S. airport checkpoints and expanding rapidly at mid-size facilities. CT scanners create three-dimensional images of bag contents that identify liquid volumes with substantially higher accuracy than previous X-ray technology. This means liquids that were routinely passing through under previous screening, slightly oversized containers that looked borderline on flat X-ray, liquids buried deep in bags, items that screeners previously waved through during busy periods, are now being flagged consistently. The enforcement impact has been sharp. Confiscation volumes at CT-equipped checkpoints have increased materially compared to equivalent traffic volumes at non-CT checkpoints. Travelers who flew the same route with the same toiletry bag 6 months ago and had no issue are now losing items they've carried for years. The practical adjustment is simple but requires intentional preparation. Any liquid container must be 100 milliliters or 3.4 ounces or less. Not the amount inside, but the labeled container size. A 200 milliliter container that is half empty fails the rule. Everything must fit in a single quart-sized clear bag, one bag per passenger. If it doesn't fit in the bag with the top sealed, it goes in checked luggage. Separately, several European airports operating under updated EU security directives have begun trials of modified liquid rules at specific security lanes, allowing larger liquid quantities through advanced screening technology. These are trial programs, not policy changes, and they vary by airport and lane designation. Do not assume EU liquid rules have changed universally. Verify specifically for your departure airport before packing. 5. Lithium battery restrictions are being enforced at the gate. This is the change catching the largest number of travelers completely off guard in 2026 because it involves enforcement at a point in the journey most people consider past all security friction, the boarding gate. FAA regulations on lithium battery transport and checked luggage have existed for years. What is new is active. Enforcement at the gate for carry-on items, particularly power banks, spare laptop batteries, and large-capacity portable charging devices. Airlines including American, Delta, United, and most major international carriers have updated their gate agent protocols to identify and flag high-capacity power banks, specifically those exceeding 100 watt-hours, during boarding. The regulation itself is not new. Power banks and spare lithium batteries must travel in carry-on luggage, not checked bags. Power banks exceeding 100 watt-hours require airline approval. Power banks exceeding 160 watt-hours are prohibited entirely on passenger aircraft. What is new is that gate agents in 2026 are actively asking about power banks during boarding of certain flight categories, and passengers discovered with unapproved high-capacity devices face having them confiscated at the gate, sometimes minutes before departure. Check the WH rating printed on your power bank. Most consumer power banks sold in the 20,000 mAh range site, right at the 100 watt-hour boundary depending on voltage. When in doubt, contact your airline before travel for written confirmation of acceptability. E-bikes, e-scooter batteries, and large removable battery packs from power sports equipment are prohibited on passenger aircraft entirely and have been the source of gate confrontations as more travelers attempt to transport them during check-in or boarding. 4. International entry. ETA and e-visa requirements that changed in 2025. Multiple countries updated their electronic travel authorization requirements in 2025, and travelers who visited those destinations previously without pre-registration are being stopped at check-in counters because the rules that applied to their last trip no longer apply today. The United Kingdom's electronic travel authorization, the ETA, became mandatory for US citizens and most visa-exempt nationalities for visits from January 2026. This is a pre-travel registration requirement, not a visa, but it must be obtained before travel. Travelers without a valid UK ETA are being denied boarding at US departure airports during check-in. The ETA costs £10, is typically approved within minutes to 72 hours, and is linked to your passport. If you renew your passport, your ETA does not transfer. You need a new one. The European Union's ETIAS, the European Travel Information and Authorization System, has a confirmed implementation timeline that makes it a near certainty for 2026 travel to Schengen zone countries for visa-exempt nationalities, including Americans. ETIAS will require pre-registration, a fee of €7, and approval before departure for entry to EU member states. Monitor etias.eu for confirmed activation dates before booking European travel. Canada's ETA requirement for visa-exempt travelers flying into Canada has been in place since 2016, but continues to catch travelers who drive across the border regularly and assume the same rules apply to air travel. They do not. Flying to Canada without a valid ETA results in denied boarding at the departure airport. The ETA is $7 Canadian, valid for 5 years or until passport expiry, and can be obtained online in minutes, but must be done before you reach the airport. Australia and New Zealand both require electronic travel authorities for visa-exempt travellers, and both countries have increased compliance checking at international departure airports through airline check-in systems. Your airline's check-in system will flag a missing ETA before you reach the gate, but this will happen at the counter, with your luggage, potentially 90 minutes before departure, which is not the moment you want to discover a missing authorization. 3. Checked baggage weight and size. The enforcement tightening. Airlines have been inconsistent about baggage enforcement for years. Agents would sometimes wave slightly overweight bags through. Thresholds were soft in practice, even when firm on paper. And experienced travelers learned which routes and carriers were more flexible. That informality is systematically disappearing. Automated baggage drop systems, now deployed at most major US and European hub airports, weigh bags mechanically and flag overweight items automatically before a human agent is involved. The system doesn't negotiate. A bag at £51 on a £50 allowance generates an overweight fee without agent discretion entering the process. Overweight fees on major US carriers currently run $100 per bag for the first weight band over the allowance. Carry-on size enforcement has similarly tightened at several major carriers. United and American have both issued updated gate agent protocols for carry-on bag sizers at high-load flights, and passengers with bags that don't fit the sizer template are being asked to check them at the gate, with gate check fees now applying on basic economy fares at several carriers where they previously did not. Weigh your checked bags at home before departure. Measure your carry-on against your specific carrier's published dimensions, not a general standard, because dimensions vary meaningfully between carriers and even between aircraft types within the same carrier. 2. Airport lounges. The access rules that changed overnight. This is not a safety or legal issue. It's a financial one that is catching premium travelers completely off guard. Lounge overcrowding reached a crisis point at multiple US and international hub airports through 2024 and 2025, and the response from card issuers and lounge operators has been a series of access policy changes that invalidated assumptions millions of card holders had built travel plans around. American Express Centurion lounges implemented guest fee policies and reduced complimentary guest access for Platinum cardholders in 2023. Those policies have been further tightened entering 2026, with certain high-traffic locations implementing capacity management systems that create waitlists during peak periods, meaning your Platinum card no longer guarantees entry at the time you want it. Priority Pass, the most widely distributed lounge access network globally, has seen ongoing reductions in participating restaurant and lounge partners at multiple US airports. Travelers with Priority Pass through Chase Sapphire, Capital One, or other card issuers have arrived at airports expecting lounge access and found that the specific lounge they intended to use no longer participates in the network or has converted to a different access tier. Verify your specific lounge access benefits and the participating locations at your departure airport before you rely on lounge access as part of your travel day plan. The information on your card issuer's website reflects current partnerships, and those partnerships change with less notice than most cardholders realize. 1. Security lane selection. The hidden consequence of choosing wrong. Most travelers approach the security checkpoint, see multiple lanes, and choose based on apparent line length. In 2026, that instinct is creating a specific problem at airports that have deployed differentiated lane technology, because choosing the wrong lane based on line length can result in a substantially longer total experience than the longer-looking line would have produced. Standard screening lanes at CT-equipped checkpoints process more slowly per passenger than equivalent volume at traditional X-ray lanes, because the CT scanning process takes longer and the bin unpacking requirements differ slightly. Precheck lanes at CT-equipped checkpoints maintain faster throughput. Clear lanes, which use biometric identity verification to move members directly to the front of the security lane, operate independently of TSA lane technology type. At airports with all three options, the fastest path for a Precheck member with Clear is unambiguously the Clear plus Precheck combination lane where available. For travelers without Precheck, a slightly longer standard line at a CT lane will frequently outperform a shorter line at a congested older technology lane with high passenger volume. Pay attention to signage at the checkpoint. Lane designations in 2026 include more technology-specific information than in previous years, and the few seconds spent reading them correctly saves considerably more time than the fastest guess about line length. The common thread across every item on this list is the same. The rules changed, the enforcement caught up, and travelers who were running on assumptions built from prior experience paid the price. Airports in 2026 are faster, more automated, and more consistently enforced than at any point in commercial aviation history. That is genuinely good for the system. It is only a problem for travelers who haven't updated their knowledge to match the current environment. Check your Real ID status. Renew your Precheck before it expires. Verify ETA requirements for every international. Destination before you book. Weigh your bags. Check your power bank wattage. Confirm your lounge access is actually valid at your specific airport. Every one of these takes less than 10 minutes. Every one of them has cost unprepared travelers hours, hundreds of dollars, or their seat on a flight in 2026. If this reached you before your next trip rather than after it, share it with someone who has travel coming up. Subscribe for travel intelligence that keeps you ahead of the changes rather than behind them. And drop a comment telling us which of these caught you most off guard. Or share an airport experience from 2025 or 2026 where a rule change cost you time or money.